How about your pension plan? You know that reformers opted out of it. There have been some articles in the newspaper lately, and I just want to clarify it once and for all, that when we opted out of the MP pension plan in September of 1995, the government basically wrote legislation with a Deb GREY clause in it, but her friends got dragged down also, according to them. That they said, we'll give you a 60-day window after this legislation gets royal assent, and that was in July of 95. We'll give you a 60-day window. We asked for a fair pension, dollar for dollar, employer-employee contribution. We thought that was fair. They said, you take it all or you take nothing. And we took the nothing. And I'll tell you, it's hurt. It's hurt all of us, because that was a very huge decision to make. But if you operate on a principle and a plumb line and you know what hangs true, then you don't mind making those decisions, as personally painful as they are, because you know what is right and you know what's going to sell in downtown Lethbridge or any other place across the country. And yet what happened is, and we knew this, and this is what we campaigned on in the election, that any new MP, reform or otherwise, was locked into that pension plan because that window closed. And so we knew that if there were any new reformers elected, that they were bound to have to take that MP pension plan. We ran to form government. When we didn't form government, we cannot bring in that legislation. You can imagine how popular that would be with a majority government. They just said, forget it. So what the newspapers in the last couple of weeks have tried to do is say, well, look at those hypocritical reformers. You know, it's not true. These guys have to be in, and you want to guess how awkward it is for both sides. 40 reformers who have opted out, who get sweet zero from the government, and then these new guys who have no option but to stay in the MP pension plan. And all our commitment is this, that we will work our guts out to form the government of this country, and then and only then, because that's only when we'll have the power, to change the MP pension plan so it's fair for all of us, and it's going to be retroactive for all of them. Well, there's a subject that we all hate to talk about, then we sit down at the supper table and talk about it for 3 hours. National unity. There wasn't much in the throne speech on national unity. No mention of public consultation. Funny thing, eh? They must have just missed that part, I think, probably in the throne speech. Nothing about the rebalancing of powers. Just more of the same. The Calgary Declaration of the Premiers getting together, I think, was a step in the right direction in terms of, they want to call it unique society, you know, whatever it is. People are suspicious of the name because of its distinct society, unique character, or whatever. The other side of that, I think, has some positive things in it in terms of the equality of provinces and the process about public consultation. Now, we'll have to see where it goes from here. But I think that the premiers even talked about the equality of provinces is probably, you know, something healthy, because I've never seen it before in Meech Lake or Charlottetown. All we know is whatever governments and the politicians are doing, this is the way I think it has to be. And that is this, that whatever is offered to one province must be offered to every other province. After all, we are a family, and no kid should ever have special treatment. That is further, that if any province, ours or any other, BC, bless Pat Carney, dear knows what's going on there, but anyway, any province must not be allowed to have any special powers in the Constitution that is not offered to every other one. And we think that is a basic piece of information that needs to get out to people. And when you read the articles that Preston Manning and the reformers have changed their position, the answer is no. And somebody told me yesterday in caucus about the paragraph on the back cover of Preston's book called The Road to New Canada. They had just read it. Was that you, Rick, that told me at coffee? No, it was someone else who came up to me and they said, Deb, have you read the paragraph on the back of Preston's book lately? And I said, as a matter of fact, no. And it was almost verbatim some of the things that were talked about in Calgary, talking about the equality of all provinces and that every province is unique. And I thought, there he is again, just 5 years ahead of his time on everything. So if you have Preston's book, go home and have a look at it tonight. That just got told to me yesterday, so I have to head home and look at my bookshelf, but read that. I think that that's essential, because we lived through Meech. We lived through Charlottetown. Joe Clark said we wouldn't, but guess what? He was wrong. What a surprise. He called me an enemy of Canada. I didn't like that a whole lot. When you ask me how proud I am to be a Canadian, and I say to you, my birthday's July 1st, you come close to me and call me an enemy of Canada, and it may not be pretty. Can you imagine? This is building national unity? No. This is scare tactics from people who are mired in the old way of doing things to say, well, you know, we think that it has to be this way or no way. And Meech died and Charlottetown died. And the best part about Charlottetown, I think, is that it wasn't a bunch of politicians going and just giving one vote on behalf of everybody else, but it was real people right across the country who had that power in the reins right in their hand, that you could vote yes or no. And I think that that's probably changed politics forever in this country, and I think it's really exciting. Now, the present government, you're not going to see just racing out to have another referendum. You could count on that. But I know when we form a reform government that we really do believe that the common wisdom of the general population, it seems to me, always bubbles up to the surface, and that's pretty exciting to see, as it was in Charlottetown. Democratic renewal is another one. Parliament doesn't work. Poor Rick there, you know, he thinks, man, I don't know what I got into here. But already, with this government who talks about democracy, the very first bill, the Canada Pension Plan premium raises, ruses, whatever. They brought in time allocation. We debated it for 7 hours. This is the biggest tax grab in Canadian history. It's billions of dollars. And after 7 hours, they said, that's it. We're debating till the end of the day and we'll have the vote. And this is democracy. Just 2 or 3 days ago, they snuck in 5 minutes before the end and they said, okay, we're just bringing in now extension of hours so that we're going to debate it till the end of the evening and that's it. No more debates for tomorrow, and they just surprised us with that. And I was on CBC News World there with Don Boudria, and that was a very, very difficult time for me because it just was so frustrating. I said, this is the first and second bill in a parliament. We have 4.5 years, Don. What's your rush? He says, well, that's just absolutely nonsense. I said, I can count. You know, like we just had the election. Why are you in such a rush to just ram this stuff through? Beyond those two measures, they are starting bills in the Senate now, if you could imagine anything like that. Wake them up! We're bringing a bill. You know, it's about how it goes. You know, one of the senators, Herb Sparrow, calls it the chamber that sleeps 104. And he's been a senator for quite a while. I like that line. They're starting bills in the Senate so they can ram them through there, and then they'll just bring them through just as a matter of course through the Commons. That has not been done in Parliament before. They always, you know, kind of come to and put a few things through. They initiate some legislation. But they've already done 4 bills in there. And that's pretty scary to me and brings me to Senate reform, which I think is absolutely necessary. Now, maybe Ray will run as a senator here. I don't know. Oh, no, Ingrid says no. Well, I guess that made your decision. Don't you think it's time that we had senators who not just knew what was going on, but had real clout, a real mandate? For the first time in history, we have 3 political parties in the House of Commons who have no representation in the Senate. None. Reform, the Bloc, and the NDP. There's just the Tories and the Liberals, and they go back and forth and round and round. And so the Senate is even becoming more irrelevant than it ever was, if you could imagine that. It astounds me, but it's true. And so we push a Triple E Senate, continue. They say, oh, reform doesn't believe in it anymore. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. That we need elected senators, that we need equal numbers of senators from each province, and they think that's just heresy when you mention that. They say, oh, it can't be done because of the population disparities. I say, sort of like New South Wales and Tasmania? Oh, yeah, well, we forgot about that. So like in the States, when you get 2 senators from Rhode Island, which is about this big, and 2 senators from California, who has the same population as all of Canada. Oh yeah, well, they forgot about that part too. Then we would have finally an effective Senate. So let's bring some of those things into the House of Commons. Probably one of the biggest democratic reforms that has been on Reform's platform forever is that we would be able to have free votes in the House of Commons, and you could defeat a bill but not defeat the government. Now, you know that the Liberals have a majority of about this much in this Parliament. They have 155 seats, and you need 151. It's fairly slim. And so we may see that in this Parliament where the number of opposition, if we're all there, we can easily defeat the government. And I think then you'll find them just spring to democratic principles and say, oh yes, but it shouldn't mean a confidence motion, and those reformers were right all the time, and it shouldn't mean we're defeating the government, when all the time they've never paid any attention to that. But watch for that in this Parliament. It will be very interesting. Stay tuned. You'll see it first on Air Farce, and this hour has 22 minutes.